He helped a lost alien find a home, and ended up losing his heart to her starfall in the garden. The night the meteor shower was forecast to peak, Elias Reed stayed late in his greenhouse laboratory. While the rest of the botanical research team had gone to watch nature's light show from the hilltop, he preferred the company of his exotic plants, meticulously documenting the growth patterns of a rare species of night-blooming orchid. "Just you and me tonight," he murmured, adjusting his recording equipment as rain began to patter against the glass dome overhead. The solitude suited him. At 34, he'd grown accustomed to quiet evenings spent among his botanical specimens, finding more comfort in their silent companionship than in crowded social gatherings. The first tremor was subtle, just enough to make the hanging plants sway gently. Elias glanced up from his notebook, brow furrowed. The second came stronger, rattling the glass vials on his workbench. Before he could react, a blinding flash of light tore through the night sky, followed by a thunderous crash that shook the entire structure. Glass shattered somewhere in the eastern quadrant. Elias grabbed his emergency lamp and rushed toward the sound, heart pounding. What he found left him frozen in disbelief. A section of the roof had caved in completely, rain pouring through the gap onto a smoking crater in his prized fern collection, and in the center lay something impossible. A translucent pod, its surface rippling with iridescent colors that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Hello?" Elias called, approaching cautiously. "Is someone—" The pod's surface suddenly shifted, becoming transparent. Inside was a woman, or at least something resembling a woman. Her skin had a faint bluish luminescence, and her hair moved as though suspended in water despite being dry. Her eyes remained closed, but her chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. Instinct overrode caution. Elias pressed his palm against the pod's surface, surprised to find it warm and yielding like living tissue. At his touch, the material dissolved into mist, leaving the unconscious visitor exposed to the rain. Elias quickly removed his lab coat and covered her, checking for injuries. A deep laceration ran along her forearm, seeping a silvery fluid that gleamed in the lamplight. When he touched it, her eyes flew open, startlingly violet and with vertical pupils that contracted sharply at the sight of him. "It's okay," he said softly, raising his hands. "I won't hurt you." "You're injured." She scrambled backward, speaking in melodic sounds unlike any language he'd heard. Her movements were graceful despite her obvious pain and fear. "I'm Elias," he said, pointing to himself. "You're safe here." Thunder crashed overhead, making her flinch. Rain continued pouring through the broken roof, and Elias gestured toward the small living quarters attached to his laboratory. "Please," he said, "let me help you." For several tense moments she studied him, her gaze unnervingly intense. Then, clutching her injured arm, she gave a slight nod. That night, as Elias tended to her wound with trembling hands, he realized his orderly life had irrevocably changed. The visitor, whom he would later know as Nira, watched him with wary curiosity as he applied a makeshift bandage to her arm. Outside, the meteor shower continued, raining celestial fire across the sky that had delivered her to his doorstep. Neither could have known that this accidental meeting would become the first page of a story written across the stars, the language of light. 3 weeks after the meteor shower, Elias found himself creating a new routine around his unexpected guest. Nira had recovered quickly from her injuries, the silvery wound on her arm healing with remarkable speed. What began as awkward gestures and frustrated attempts at communication had evolved into something more elegant, a dance of mutual understanding. "This," Elias said, holding up a small potted succulent, "is an HFY elegans." He spoke slowly, watching as Nira's violet eyes tracked his mouth movements. She reached out, touching the plant's fleshy leaves with delicate fingers. HFY, she repeated, her accent lending a musical quality to the Latin name. She then made a lilting sound and gesture that Elias had come to understand was her language's word for the same plant. Their makeshift dictionary grew daily. Nira learned English with astonishing speed, while Elias struggled but enthusiastically attempted the flowing language of Lunaris. They developed a system of journals where they would sketch objects and write both words beside them. These quiet moments of study often stretched into evening conversations by the greenhouse's heating system, where their knees would occasionally brush as they huddled over their work. "Your world," Nira said one evening. Her command of English, now functional though still accented, "has so much water. She gestured to the rain that had been falling steadily all week. On Lunaris, water is precious. We collect every drop. Elias watched her face as she spoke of home. The subtle glow beneath her skin intensified with emotion, illuminating her features in the dim light. What else is different? He asked, trying to ignore how his heart rate increased when she smiled. The gravity, she said, demonstrating by jumping slightly higher than should have been possible, and the colors of your sky. Ours is too, she frowned, searching for the word. Purple? With 2 suns. That night, Elias took her outside during a brief break in the rain. The research compound was remote enough that the stars shone brilliantly against the night sky. Nira stood with her face upturned, droplets of residual rain catching in her strange fluid-like hair. Can you see it? She asked softly. Lunaris? Elias stood close behind her, following her pointing finger to a distant pinprick of light. That's your home? Yes. A pause filled with unspoken longing. My family will be searching. Something cold settled in Elias's chest at the reminder that she didn't belong here, that her presence in his greenhouse, in his life, was temporary. An accident of cosmic proportions. Do you want to try contacting them? He asked, even as part of him dreaded the answer. She turned to face him close enough that he could see the subtle patterns that swirled beneath the surface of her eyes. Yes, she whispered, but I need materials your world might not have. Their hands found each other's in the darkness, and Elias was struck by how natural it felt. Her cooler skin against his, fingers intertwining as if they'd done this 1,000 times before. We'll figure it out, he promised, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. Inside, they worked late into the night, Nira sketching designs for a communication device, while Elias suggested Earth equivalents for the components. When exhaustion finally overcame them, they fell asleep side by side on the small couch in his office, her head resting against his shoulder, their linked hands still holding a pencil over the blueprint that might one day take her away from him. In the morning light, Elias watched her sleeping face and acknowledged the truth he'd been avoiding. Helping her find a way home might break his heart, but keeping her from trying would break something far more precious between them. Echoes of home. Hold it steady, Nira instructed, her voice calm despite the crackling energy surrounding the makeshift device they'd constructed in the greenhouse's storage room. 2 months of scavenging components, late-night soldering sessions, and countless theoretical discussions had led to this moment. Elias gripped the stabilizing rod, watching as Nira's fingers moved with practiced precision across the control panel. You've done this before, he observed. It wasn't a question. I was, a communications specialist, she admitted, adjusting a dial that emitted a soft humming tone. My ship was a research vessel. We study interstellar phenomena, collect data on developing worlds, like Earth, Elias asked, suddenly understanding her quick adaptation to their surroundings. Nira's eyes met his, the vertical pupils widening slightly. No, your world was not our destination, the meteor storm. It was unexpected. My escape pod's navigation system was damaged. She hesitated. It was fortunate that I landed here. With you. The simple statement carried a weight that made Elias's chest tighten. Over the past weeks, their relationship had transformed, from cautious strangers to research partners to something neither of them had named yet, something that lingered in the space between their conversations, in the brush of fingers when passing tools, in the way Nira would sometimes catch him watching her and hold his gaze a moment longer than necessary. Ready? She asked, her fingers hovering over the activation sequence. Elias nodded and Nira pressed the final combination. The device hummed to life, projecting a holographic display of swirling constellations above their heads. The beauty of it stole Elias's breath, stars and nebulae rendered in exquisite detail, shifting as Nira adjusted the coordinates. There, she said softly, zooming in on a particular system. Lunaris. The hologram resolved to show a planet orbiting twin stars, one gold, one pale blue. Its surface was a tapestry of deep purples and silver land masses, nothing like Earth's blue and green. It's beautiful, Elias whispered, entranced by this glimpse of her world. Nira began encoding a signal, her fingers dancing through the hologram as she composed a message in her native language. I'm telling them I'm alive, she explained, providing coordinates, basic information about Earth. Will they come for you? The question that had been haunting him for weeks finally escaped his lips. Her hands stilled momentarily. If the signal reaches them, yes, eventually. The word eventually hung between them, both a reprieve and a sentence. Elias forced himself to focus on the technical aspects, pushing aside the emotional implications. How long would it take them to get here? Depending on their position when they receive the signal. Perhaps 3 of your Earth months. 3 months. The time frame hit him with unexpected force. 3 more months of morning coffees with Nira asking endless questions about Earth customs. 3 more months of teaching her about his plants while she taught him about the stars. 3 more months of pretending that every moment together wasn't slowly leading to goodbye. That night, after sending the signal, they sat together on the greenhouse roof, watching Earth's stars. The air between them felt charged with unspoken words. "Elias," Nira finally said, her voice barely audible above the gentle rustle of wind through the nearby trees. "On Lunaris, we have a concept called soul shadow. It's the idea that each person casts an invisible shadow across the universe until it touches their, I think your word is soulmate." Elias turned to face her, heart pounding. "And what happens when these shadows meet?" "They recognize each other instantly," she said, her luminescent skin glowing more intensely in the darkness. "Even across different worlds." When her hand found his, Elias interlaced their fingers, marveling at how something so alien could feel so familiar. And when Nira leaned toward him, closing the distance between their worlds, he met her halfway. Their first kiss tasted of stardust and possibility, gentle at first, then deepening as the initial hesitation gave way to months of building tension. Elias cradled her face, feeling the subtle vibration beneath her skin that intensified with emotion. That night, beneath Earth's moon and stars, they surrendered to the gravitational pull between them. In the small bed of his living quarters, they explored the geography of each other's bodies, familiar in form, yet wonderfully different in detail. Nira's skin illuminated the darkness as Elias traced constellations across her body with reverent fingers and tender kisses. Their joining was both a discovery and a recognition, as though their souls had indeed found their shadows across the vast expanse of space. Afterward, lying in each other's arms, the reality of their situation returned. Somewhere in the vastness of space, her message was traveling toward Lunaris. Somewhere in the future, a choice waited to be made. "What happens now?" Elias whispered against her hair. Nira's arms tightened around him. "Now," she said softly, "we have tonight. And tomorrow. And each day until—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The signal's choice. The reply from Lunaris arrived on a crisp autumn morning, exactly 73 days after they had sent Nira's message. Elias was cataloging new seedlings when the communication device emitted a series of melodic tones that made Nira drop the watering can she was holding. "They've found me," she whispered, her violet eyes wide with a mixture of relief and something that looked remarkably like dread. They rushed to the storage room where the device projected a holographic message, a formal response from the Lunarian Science Council confirming that a rescue mission had already been dispatched. The hologram showed a sleek vessel, far more advanced than anything Earth had produced, with an estimated arrival in 21 days. 21 days. The number echoed in Elias's mind as he watched Nira's face. Her expression remained unreadable as she translated the technical aspects of the message. Coordinates for a rendezvous point, protocols for extraction, assurances of medical assistance upon arrival. "They're coming for you," Elias said softly when she finished, stating the obvious because he couldn't bring himself to ask the question that mattered. Nira's luminescence dimmed slightly, something that happened when she was processing difficult emotions. "Yes," she replied simply. That evening, they sat in strained silence on the porch of Elias's small cottage. The research compound was quiet, most of his colleagues having departed for a botanical conference that Elias had opted to skip. The excuse he'd given was needing to monitor his experimental crossbreeds, but the truth sat beside him, staring up at the stars with conflicted eyes. "What would happen," he finally asked, "if you stayed on Earth?" Nira turned to him, the patterns beneath her skin shifting more rapidly than usual. "Physiologically, I could survive here. Our biology is compatible enough." She took his hand, her cool fingers tracing the lines of his palm. "But I would never see Lunaris again. My family, my research colleagues. I would be choosing to let them believe I perished in the crash." Elias nodded slowly. feeling selfish for even raising the possibility. And if you go back? I return to my life. My position at the Science Academy. My research? She hesitated. But without you. The truth of their situation hung heavy between them. Two people from worlds separated by vast reaches of space, brought together by cosmic accident, now forced to confront the impossibility of their connection. Over the following days, they moved through the routines they had established, but every action was shadowed by the countdown. When Elias explained a new botanical discovery, Nira would mention how she might apply it to her research on Lunaris, then stop herself, uncertainty clouding her features. When they made love, there was a new desperation, as though they were trying to memorize each other before inevitable separation. 12 days before the ship's arrival, Elias found Nira in the greenhouse at dawn, surrounded by the morning glories that only bloomed for a few hours each day. "They're like time," she said without looking up. "So beautiful, but so brief." Elias knelt beside her, taking her hands in his. "Nira, I need to tell you something." He took a deep breath. "I love you. I think I have since that first night you crashed into my garden. And because I love you, I need you to choose what's right for you, not for me, not for us, but for you." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "How can I choose between two halves of my heart, between my past and what could be my future? You don't have to decide right now," he said, though each passing day made the decision more real, more imminent. That night, Nira shared stories of her family on Lunaris, her 3 younger siblings, her parents who were both respected scholars. She showed Elias holographic images of her home city, with its crystalline spires that caught the light of twin suns. For the first time, he truly understood what she would be sacrificing if she stayed. As they lay together watching the sunrise, Nira finally spoke the words that had been building between them. "I've made my decision," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion vibrating beneath her skin. "And whatever happens next, Elias Reed, know that finding you was worth crossing the stars." Constellations aligned. The day of the Lunarian ship's arrival dawned clear and cold. Elias had chosen the rendezvous point carefully, a remote clearing in the forest beyond the research compound, far from curious eyes or government intervention. He had packed Nira's few possessions into a small bag, the earth clothes she had grown accustomed to, botanical samples she wished to study, and a journal filled with pressed flowers from his greenhouse. They drove in silence, the weight of Nira's decision heavy between them. When they reached the clearing, Elias cut the engine and turned to her. "Are you sure?" he asked, searching her luminescent face for any sign of doubt. Nira's vertical pupils dilated in the morning light. "I've never been more certain of anything," she replied, taking his hand. They waited as the minutes ticked by, eyes fixed on the clear blue sky. At precisely the calculated time, a shimmer appeared in the air above the clearing, a distortion that grew until it revealed the sleek outline of a ship unlike anything human engineering could create. It hovered silently, its surface rippling with the same iridescent colors as Nira's escape pod had all those months ago. A beam of light extended from the vessel's underside, materializing into a ramp. 3 figures descended, tall, graceful beings with the same luminescent skin as Nira. They approached cautiously, their expressions showing clear surprise at seeing Elias standing beside their lost compatriot. Nira stepped forward, addressing them in the flowing language of Lunaris. Though Elias had learned some phrases, their rapid exchange was beyond his comprehension. He watched as Nira gestured toward him, toward the sky, toward herself. The tallest of the visitors responded with what sounded like a question, and Nira's answer was firm and immediate. After several minutes of discussion, Nira returned to Elias's side, taking his hand. "I've explained everything," she said softly. "About us, about my decision." Elias's heart hammered in his chest. "And the council sent my research supervisor, Dr. Valen, along with 2 senior colleagues. They're surprised but not entirely shocked. Apparently there are ancient Lunarian texts that speak of connections forming across different worlds. What happens now?" Elias asked, eyeing the waiting visitors. Nira squeezed his hand. "I've told them I won't be returning to Lunaris, at least not permanently." Elias blinked in surprise. "Not permanently?" A smile spread across Nira's face, making her entire being glow more brightly. "Dr. Valen has proposed something unprecedented. The Council is interested in establishing formal but secret scientific exchange with Earth. beginning with botanical research. Understanding dawned slowly. You mean, I would be the first Lunarian ambassador to Earth working alongside you at the research compound. And periodically, perhaps once or twice an Earth year, we could travel to Lunaris together. Together? Elias repeated, hardly daring to believe what he was hearing. Their ship technology can safely transport humans, she explained. You could visit my world, meet my family, see the twin suns rise over the crystal forests. Her expression grew serious. It wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, adjustments. But we wouldn't have to choose between worlds. The implications washed over him in waves, a future neither of them had dared imagine. A bridge between stars that began with a meteor shower and a broken greenhouse roof. There's one more thing, Nira added, her luminescence intensifying with emotion. Lunarian partnerships are marked by an exchange of life energies, what you might call a marriage. It creates a biological connection that would help you adapt to Lunarian environments. She hesitated. It would also gradually extend your lifespan to match mine. Are you proposing to me? Elias asked, a smile breaking through his astonishment. I believe I am, Nira replied, her vertical pupils dilating with affection. Though I'm not sure I'm following Earth custom correctly. Elias laughed, pulling her close. The custom doesn't matter. My answer is yes to all of it. To building a bridge between our worlds, to sharing my life with you, to whatever challenges come with loving someone from across the stars. Under the watchful eyes of the Lunarian delegation, they sealed their promise with a kiss that felt like the beginning of something much greater than themselves. When they parted, Nira led Elias toward her people, their fingers intertwined. There's someone I'd like you to meet, she said, guiding him toward Dr. Valen, the first of many introductions across worlds. 6 months later, beneath the purple skies of Lunaris, Elias stood beside Nira on a balcony overlooking a city of crystal and light. The twin suns cast dual shadows behind them, one golden, one blue, that merged into a single silhouette against the ancient stone. Soul shadows, Nira murmured, following his gaze to where their shadows joined. Elias drew her close, marveling at how someone from another world could feel so much like home. They found each other, he said, across the stars. Their story had begun with a crash landing in a greenhouse, but it continued as something far more intentional, a constellation of choices that aligned two different worlds and proved that even the vast distances of space were no match for hearts, determined to find their way to each other. In the years that followed, they would build more than a bridge between worlds. They would create a legacy of connection, proving that love could indeed transcend the boundaries of planets, species, and even the cold emptiness of space itself.